Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is your latest Manchester United transfer news. Here we go. And it might not be the last time this week we're saying it. It's not here we go on Ugarte, it's not here we go on McTominay, and it's certainly not here we go on Jadon Sancho. It's here we go on Pellistri for about €6 million. But there's a hell of a lot to talk about this morning. We've got a big article coming out from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic. Major updates in there talking about Eriksen, talking about many situations at Manchester United and what's actually going on. Probably one of the more interesting ones, Man United not looking for a left-back. They're happy with Mazraoui and Dalot, and Ten Hag is confident that Shaw will be back. I'm telling you now, these are the sort of decisions that Erik Ten Hag's going to get judged on this season. I've said before, I'm behind this manager. I fought for this manager, but you can't. Gary Neville, I very rarely agree with Gary Neville. I agree with Gary Neville. You can't hide behind injuries this season, Eric. And if you aren't getting a left back because you think Luke Shaw's going to be fit, I'm sorry, you're not checking his Wikipedia page. So, we'll talk about that as well. That's from Laurie Whitwell. Apparently, we're not buying a left back. We're not loaning a left back. We're not doing anything with a left back. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. Sancho to Chelsea from The Athletic, from Laurie Whitwell, potentially as well. That's always a story I thought was a big load of crap, but actually looks like there might be some theory behind that. Why Chelsea would be looking at Jadon Sancho when they've just bought Neto and they're looking at João Felix, I do not know. Eriksen, there's a latest on him, and obviously we're going to get straight into it now. There's so much to talk about this morning, and of course, as always, get your comments in. That's where we're at. So we're going to start off with, well, we have got a Here We Go, and it's from Fabrizio Romano, of course, and it's to do with Pellistri, who is going for €6 million to Panathinaikos. I think at the end of the day, we paid 9 million for him, and I think with amortization, we're making about 2 million. Let's delve into that in a little bit, because I want to give you the headlines on McTominay and on Ugarte, because they're, let's be honest, they're bigger stories. But what I would just drop about Pellistri, and what I would talk about the left-back in a few minutes as well, is it's disgraceful about the left-back situation. It's just so frustrating. But with Pellistri, all I can say is, not surprised, and we are letting go a winger who is better than some of the ones we're keeping. But again, that's down to Ten Hag. He doesn't rate Pellistri. I rate Ten Hag. I want him to do well, but I've said this for 18 months. He doesn't rate Pellistri, so there's no point Pellistri being here. But that is a waste of a talent. I'll argue that with anybody. To buy someone for 9 million who's a starter for Uruguay and let them go for what? 2 million? It's a real waste of a talent. We've completely and utterly wasted Pellistri there. He should be going for 15, 20 million. Man City is selling kids. Chelsea is selling kids who've never played first team football for 15, 20 million pounds. And Pellistri's going out for like €4 million with 2 million profit. It's just a complete and utter misuse. And that's not an Ineos either. What's it got to do with Ineos? They've only been here for like 8 months. It's got nothing to do with them. It's just a misuse of talent again. He's a good player. I like him. He's a good player. But look, he's not better than Garnacho in my opinion. He's not better than Ahmad. But I think there's a good player there. I think it's a waste of time, a waste of a talent. That doesn't mean rant or anything like that. I'm just saying, I just think it's a waste of talent. Let's recap on what's going on, though. Big up to the legends last night who were here for the late night show. We were talking about this obligation loan deal with Ugarte. If you missed the late show last night, effectively Fabrizio Romano dropping it out there that Manchester United are in talks with PSG and the option of a loan with an obligation to buy is very much back on the table. Obviously, that would mean we get Ugarte on loan, and then next summer we would have to pay them the fee because it's an obligation to pay. It's not an option. That could be a way that we get this deal done. It's mentioned in The Athletic this morning. It's mentioned about that, and it's mentioned that it could go right to the end of the transfer window. We spoke about this last night. It's very logical. If you have a loan with an obligation to buy on the table, it's a get out of jail card. Effectively, I don't think we're going to activate that today, tomorrow, or this week. I think that's basically Man United, PSG, Ugarte and George Mendes saying, if we can't get a deal done properly, let's do a loan with an obligation to buy at the end of the window. So I think that's just a little bit of a buffer to allow that deal to still happen. I think for the next few days, they're still going to work on, can we get the price down? Can we raise some money by selling players like Scott McTominay, etc. So I still very much think that it's a good news story around Ugarte, but it probably won't see Ugarte on the bench for Brighton on Saturday. I think it will be something that happens next week, probably. But you never know. It could happen quicker. Because I think that the loan with an obligation to buy is because we don't have the money at the moment. But we'll give ourselves a bit of time to try and raise that money, especially if we're not looking for a left-back now. So why would you sign a loan with an obligation to buy for Ugarte now when you might sell McTominay and Sancho next week and then have the money? So I think that we will wait on it, to be honest with you. The situation with Scott McTominay this morning is that obviously Sander Berge is going to go to Fulham. Sky, who've got good sources around Fulham, are saying that Manchester United had an offer the same as what Burnley had for Sander Berge, so 20 million plus add-ons. Man United rejected it, and obviously Burnley took it. The story goes on to say that Manchester United were in talks with Burnley, but it never progressed to a serious stage. And obviously Fulham have stepped in and done that deal. But also part of that story, it does say that with Scott McTominay, Fulham did get a bit tired of waiting, as McTominay appeared to be waiting on other clubs. I think Everton has been mentioned in relation to McTominay actually now, but certainly Galatasaray and Napoli. Apparently McTominay wanted to keep his options open for the next few days, and Fulham didn't want to wait. So look, I mean, the problem with the Fulham deal is that the money would have been there. They've obviously got some money and they've spent it, and that would have been useful for Manchester United. But it appears that maybe McTominay wasn't totally sold on going to Fulham, and Fulham have moved on to another target, which is actually quite logical, I suppose. We were talking last night that the news out of the dressing room is that McTominay wants to go. He does want to go, and it appears that he probably wants to go Napoli or maybe another Premier League club, or maybe Galatasaray. So Manchester United obviously will be just sat there waiting to see if anybody can come forward with the money that they want for Scott McTominay. It'll be very interesting to see if they do achieve the 25 million that they want, because the closer you get to the end of the transfer window, the more prices can go down. Having said that, if there's a bit of a bidding war, then maybe that price can go up. But as Aravin said, if Osimhen gets sold, it helps the Napoli deal for Scott McTominay. But I still think that deal can happen. I don't think the Fulham deal, I saw a lot of people melting down last night about the Fulham deal. I was actually quite happy about it. I mean, at the end of the day, if McTominay doesn't want to go to Fulham, you can't force him there. And if Fulham want to sign Sander Berge because he's cheaper, that's up to them. It actually stops us signing Sander Berge as well, which to me is happy days. So I'm very, very content with that, as long as we still see McTominay go and we get Ugarte. Or at the very least, we still get Ugarte, which still looks very, very good. Hi, Mark. With loan and obligations to buy, will it cost more? Will there be a loan fee and also a transfer fee, says Ashton? Don't know. These deals are quite rare, loan with an obligation to buy. In fact, they're very rare. So it's not something that we can really talk about with any certainty. We were talking about it last night. A loan with an obligation to buy means that we would have to buy him next summer. You would hope that there is no way that if he plays brilliant, PSG can take him back. That you would hope that there will be some things in there, like if he gets a really, really bad injury, we don't have to pay full price and stuff like that. But yeah, I suppose I guess we would just have to wait and see what happens with it, because the detail will have to come out. Will we be paying his full wages, says Lee Willoughby? In relation to Ugarte, I imagine we will be paying his wages, yes. Lionel has gifted 10 memberships. You're an absolute legend, mate. Thank you very much. And also, Sean says, suspicious the frequency Erik ten Hag was bigging up Amas. Amas, well, we'll talk about the left. Should we talk about the left back now? Actually, let's just talk about the left back now, because it's generating a lot of conversation, and I thought it might be something for a little bit later in the show. Liam Dunn says, crazy that we're not profiting more from Pellistri. And Lionel says, good morning, Mark. We need to align our expectations with the reality of things for the next couple of seasons. Nothing is going to be smooth and quick, given how long we have been in the wilderness in the running of the club. It's a very intelligent comment this morning, Lionel, because if it's 3 years of decline, why is it not 3 years of a climb? And people want instant success for 10 years of damage, and it can take time. I mean, look, it doesn't necessarily take 10 years to correct 10 years of mistakes, because there's a lot of open goals you can take by bringing in proper people, but it will take time, Lionel. Of course it will take time. This, to me, was probably one of the most confusing, concerning and biggest drops this morning. Even though we've got updates to bring you on Jadon Sancho, who could go for £40 million to Chelsea, even though we've got updates to bring you on Hannibal Mabry, Christian Eriksen, and Manchester United's strategy about transfers in the future, I want to talk about this because I think this, to me, is just scary. Scary. So, from Laurie Whitwell, Manchester United are said to have decided against pursuing a left-back this summer. Mazraoui and Dalot offer options in that position, and Ten Hag has said that Luke Shaw's injury would not keep him out for too long. That whole statement is riddled with mistakes. And not from Laurie Whitwell, he's obviously feeding it out. But I just want to start, first of all, with we're not pursuing a left-back. This was a priority position at the start of the summer. What people need to remember is that this is not a priority because Luke Shaw got injured. It was a priority at Christmas. It was a priority all the way through to May, and it was a major priority for this summer transfer window. Let me just remind you what happened last season. We had 3 left-backs at the club. We had Reguilon, we had Shaw, we had Mainu. One of them missed about 75% of the season. His name was Luke Shaw. One of them missed all of the season. His name was Mainu. And one of them we sent back on loan at Christmas and was also injured quite a lot as well in Reguilon. We had no left-back last year, really. So we're now saying we don't need one. And I said Mainu again. I meant Malacia. What? My brain will not say Malacia when I need Mainu. I don't know why I keep saying Mainu. This is, I need to go and have some tests. You know what? Even my brain has forgotten that Malacia used to play for Manchester United, that I call him Mainu. So Malacia was who I meant there. We have a left-back crisis. If we're saying we don't need a left-back, I don't care whether you're Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, Sir Jim Radcliffe, Eric Ten Hag, Ruud van Nistelrooy. I don't care what your status in the game is, and I don't care what badges you've got, and I don't care what wage you earn. I'm telling you, me, individually, and I'm sure many of you agree, I think you're making a massive, massive mistake, and you are taking a huge risk that doesn't need to be taken. You need a left-back. It's not an if, it's not a maybe, it's not a but, it's an absolute essential. It's as important as bringing in Xerxes as a backup striker. And Xerxes is a backup striker or a competitive striker. We don't have a left back. It's a very important specialist position where you need to be left-footed, and we're not bothered about it. And anybody who says that, well, we've got Malacia and we've got Dalot, can I just explain that one to you then? So Dalot plays left back and Malacia plays right back. After an hour, one of those two players are injured, knackered, or playing shit. You can't sub them. How do you sub Malacia and Dalot? Sorry, I'm calling Mazraoui Malacia now. How do you sub Mazraoui and Dalot if they're your starting right and left back? There is nobody to play. We have nobody. So I think this is a mistake. I think this is a mistake. Maybe it's a financial issue. I take that on board. Maybe we're waiting till next summer to buy a proper left back. But I think it's a massive, massive mistake. And I don't understand why we think it's a good idea when we know we've seen this movie before. Look, when you're playing one game a week in the first month of the season, oh yeah, we'll play Mazraoui at right back, we'll play Dalot at left back, we'll be absolutely fine. As soon as we hit September, October, November, December, and we're playing in all the cups, and we're playing every weekend in the Premier League, and you see Mazraoui or Dalot get injured or loss of form or get tired, and you go, shit, there's nobody else, we're done. And then we've got an excuse again, haven't we? We're using a 17-year-old at left back, or Lindelof's playing at right back. Oh, don't worry. If we can scrape fourth and a trophy, then we've had a good season because, Lindelof's not a right back. We're just getting, why are we going into a season like that when we know a problem's there? It's frustrating. And the fact that, it's coming from a good source, it's coming in from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic, Man United have decided against pursuing a left-back this summer. I think it's a major, major concern. And look, if this bit's true, that Luke Shaw, Eric Ten Hag has said that Luke Shaw's injury would not keep him out for long. I mean, if I'm Eric Ten Hag, I'm ringing up The Athletic and saying I'm going to sue you for that because you've just attached my name to a big load of bollocks. I mean, if Eric Ten Hag genuinely thinks that Luke Shaw is going to play a lot of football this season, he's an absolute fool. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Ten Hag and I'm a massive fan of Luke Shaw. I've already said when he comes back from injury in mid-September, he won't stay fit till Christmas. It's an impossibility. Absolutely impossible that Luke Shaw will come back and stay fit week in, week out. No way. Not going to happen. So I think we're leaving ourselves exposed at left back. And it gives me anxiety because there's nobody can change my mind on this. It gives me anxiety the same way I had anxiety last season every time we got an injury. I think we had an excuse last season. I think the injuries were an absolute, it was some sort of curse. But I think when you walk into a season with two fullbacks and you need to start two fullbacks, you've only got yourself to blame. I don't want to hear press conferences about we've been unlucky with injuries at left back because we already have. We've watched that movie before. If we're walking into this season with Dalot and Mazraoui as our only fit fullbacks, then it's our own fault. It's our own fault. You can't do that. You can't. It's like walking into last season with one fit striker. You can't. It's not an excuse. So I hope that something else happens in the last couple of weeks. But we have only got 10 days left in this transfer window now. And maybe we've just run out of money, but I think it's a mistake. Sticks says there's only so many signings we can make. We haven't got rid of many. It's going to take a few windows. It is Sticks. You're absolutely correct. But I think you're talking about something else. We're talking about we haven't got a left back at the start of the season, and that's not acceptable. Dalot is not a left back. He doesn't overlap past Rashford. We haven't seen Mazraoui at left back. Maybe he's better, but Dalot is not a left back. If you think Dalot's a left back, why are people giving him a 5 out of 10 against Fulham? Why is he not overlapping past Marcus Rashford? Why can't he use his left foot very well? He's not a left back. He's a guy filling in at from right back to left back. He ain't Vardiel. He's not. He is not a left back. So let's not pretend that Dalot's a left back. He isn't. He's somebody who can do a job there, but he ain't a left back. So at the end of the day, are you not better off just trying to do some sort of loan deal or buying somebody really, really cheap who can do the job? Rhythm, thank you very much for your super chat. Hi, Mark. It's my birthday today, says Taff. Love the United Stand, especially great news coverage during the window. Looking forward to many more years. Thanks, mate. Happy birthday to you. Hopefully we can get a happy birthday to Taff in the chat. Scott McTominay's going to go to Madrid as the Modric replacement, says Robert McCormack. And what do you think of Robinson from Fulham, says Pratt Bridge. I would like Robinson from Fulham, but if we're not buying a left back, we're not buying a left back. What about Mainu as left back, says Gareth Southgate. Maybe something's going on there, yeah. Mark, I think we have to offload one to get one, and no one will he either, as they are too injury prone. I think you were trying to say something there, FDJ, but I don't know what it is. Pratt Bridge, thanks for your super chats. And Sean Turner says, if we get Ugarte, that's 3 centre midfielders on loan in 3 years. Awful business. Wasting loan fees and wages on players that we aren't keeping. Just buy a midfielder. So yeah, it would be Ugarte, Amrabat and Sabitzer, wouldn't it? Mainu won more duels in the Premier League opening weekend than any other player. Could have a number 6 right under our nose, says Gaz. Oh, mate, what a waste, though. What an absolute waste of time. Why can't we big up Mainu winning more duels than any... I mean, but how many of those were high recoveries? Like, how many... See, that's where I think stats are wrong, Gaz. Because someone will look at, oh, Mainu won more duels than anyone in the Premier League. Where on the pitch did he win them? Because he won countless on the edge of their box. And also, if you put Mainu as a 6, what a waste of time. This is a guy who can dribble, pass in tight spaces, press really high up the pitch. I don't think he's a 6. I think he's an 8. And I think we saw that He was brilliant in that first half. The amount of balls he won high up the pitch as well, which I would say is a lot of where his recoveries were. So tired of the media pushing anti-Ten Hag agenda and their lack of understanding of modern football. Keep up the good work, Mark, says Florrie. Well, as I said yesterday, it's great that a few people have done a few clips about this because we've been talking about it for about 6 months. So, you know, I was laughing at one of the clips yesterday talking about... last season against Wolves we conceded loads of chances and this season against Fulham we didn't. I was like, bloody hell, it's like watching a repeat of my match reaction. I mean, we were talking about this 3 days ago, but the more it gets out there, the better. There is obviously a ridiculous agenda against Manchester United, but I think we've moved on from that, haven't we? I mean, look, we're talking about not getting a left back. We're talking about Pellistri going. Like, actually, it's not all roses and, you know, candy floss clouds. Ten Hag's under scrutiny now. I'm not just going to sit here this season and go, oh, good old Eric. Yeah, you know, he's got to be under scrutiny. I said that. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I think that this cheerleading behind, oh, it's us against the media is all fine and well, but let's not forget to our own standards. We fought for him to have a third year. It's not easy street. If we get battered on Saturday against Brighton, is everyone going to sit there and go, oh, yeah, our manager? No, he's under scrutiny now. Like, you know, is he going to bench Ahmad on Saturday? Is he going to bench De Ligt on Saturday? You know, he's under scrutiny now at the biggest club in the world. His job was under scrutiny from Ineos. They stuck with him. We wanted him to stay, but he's not immune to criticism. And look, there was a lot last season that you would look at it and go, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Would you give the benefit of the doubt this season in year 3? That left back thing terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. Hopefully it's not true. Steve Woodley says, at this point I'd take Reguilon, desperate times. Oh, well, I would now. And you're right, 10 days to go. If we're not getting a left back, we need to start trusting Amaz. Well, I'm glad you've said this, Muyad, because I completely disagree, and I'll tell you why. Sure, we'd be throwing him in at the deep end, but the experience could prove valuable. If people are thinking that Amaz is the solution at left back, Harry Amaz, then you're an absolute wally. He's 17. He cannot be our starting solution left back if Malacia and Shaw aren't fit. Look through the history of Manchester United teenagers, whether it's David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, the what. You know, very rarely does one get thrown in and then play every week. You're in and out of the team. There's a bad performance. There's a good performance. You know, you grow. You grow. I don't think it's fair in any shape or form to say that Harry Amaz is our solution at left back. It would be massively irresponsible. And I don't think Ten Hag would do that. I think he'll give him time, but I don't think he'll be throwing him in. Abhijit says the story is a contradiction in Mark. In May, Ten Hag told us Shaw cannot play more than 30 games a season. Media are against him. Thank you very much, Abhijit. Well, that's what I mean. I just find that, I mean, there's no reason to disbelieve what Laurie Whitwell's saying, but I just don't understand why Ten Hag has said, I mean, it literally says, Ten Hag said Luke Shaw's injury would not keep him out for long. He has said that, but that doesn't mean that Luke Shaw's the solution this season. He isn't. I think we need a left back. 100%. We need a left back. Just got here, what have I missed, says Scott Botham. And I think Sancho to Chelsea will involve a left back to us, says Steve Brown. Let's talk about that next. Amrabat played a few games at left back, says Steg. Yeah, and he was absolutely shit. And what's your gut saying on who will leave by the end, says Paul. Well, we'll talk about Sancho next. My gut is that Scott McTominay will go. My gut is that Ugarte will come in. Beyond that, with Pellistri gone, the only other one I think is probably Hannibal. I don't really... We're drastically running out of time as well. So I think those two, Ugarte and McTominay, I think will happen. Obviously, Pellistri's going. They're the only ones I'm sort of confident about at the moment. And maybe Fabrizio was right. Maybe Fabrizio was right when he said Man United want one more deal, maybe two. Kyle says Eriksen will go surely. Well, there is an Eriksen update. Also from Laurie Whitwell. Man United have been looking for at least 5 million for Christian Eriksen. But look, this is where your brain kicks in, right? This is where your brain kicks in. There is fantasy and there is reality, right? Fantasy is getting a transfer fee for Christian Eriksen when he's on 150 grand a week. That is fantasy. Reality is, how are we going to do that then? Christian Eriksen is on £150,000 a week with 1 year left on his deal. And Man United think they're getting 5 million for him. How are you going to do that? Who is going to pay Christian Eriksen 150k a week and give Man United £5 million? 150k a week, right? That's £600,000 a month. That's £7.2 million a year. Just in wages. And then they're going to go, there's 5 million. It's look, this is what I mean. We can all talk about Eriksen 5 million, but it's not happening. It's not happening at all. So I don't know how Eriksen leaves Man United. He's already said he wants to stay in Manchester with his wife and kids, says 997. Christian Eriksen to me is another Victor Lindelof. In a year's time, he walks away for free, earns himself a load of money because he's free again, and United give him 7 million for the next year to sit on the bench. So, I don't think, I'm not confident Eriksen will go. I think United have got to work a miracle there. So it's interesting saying Man United are looking for 5 million. Well, I'm sure you lot are looking for things you're not going to get. Robert McCormack says it's fourth or bust for Ten Hag, no excuses. You know what, Robert? I've always disagreed with you on that. Fourth or bust for Ten Hag, no excuses. I think it's, it's multi-layered in relation to why you might be right and why you might be wrong. But if we don't bring a left back in, that's a mark against. That's not an excuse. If we don't bring a left back in, that's not an excuse. We should have brought a left back in. So we've got 10 days. If we don't bring a left back in, it was a priority at the start of the summer. It was a priority at the end of last season. That's on whoever's made that decision. Pellistri being sold, I don't think it's that deep. He isn't being sold to a big name club or even a big league. Maybe we were wrong about him, says John. It's a challenge selling Eriksen, but it's needed, says Stewart. And Sky Sports are saying that Fulham have put a bid in for Burge. Sorry, just tuned in if you mentioned it. Paul, you've just done the definition of slow sports news. That was last night, mate. That's last night. Akil says, are we gambling with the left back? January window must for left back. I don't trust Shaw unless we print England flags at Carrington. Ugarte, ASAP, Glazers out. You know what? If you want to get Luke Shaw fit, this is all banter, by the way. If you want to, I said this, if you want to get Luke Shaw fit, change the name of Carrington to St George's Park. Get Man United's training kit all to be England with 3 lions on it. Play It's Coming Home in the training ground, dressing rooms, and get Eric Ten Hag to wear a Gareth Southgate mask and a shirt and tie. And then you'll probably get him playing against Brighton. What's your gut saying on who will leave by the end? We've done that one. Let's talk about Jadon Sancho. So, look, I'm as surprised as anybody else this morning about this story. I really am. Got a bit on McTominay to bring you in a minute as well. But Jadon Sancho is looking to play regular football somewhere. It is a live situation. Man United are asking for £40 million. That's coming in from Laurie Whitwell. So Jadon Sancho is looking to play regular football somewhere. Live situation, asking for £40 million. That's from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic. But it also goes on to say that Manchester United have a sense that Chelsea may make an approach for Sancho. Man United want 40 million, but finding a club to meet his wages is an issue. Look, as I said, this is not the Daily Star. There's a credibility to this story. 2 things, one correct, one I think incredible. First of all, the most important element to that is that Jadon Sancho wants to play football somewhere. I mean, people keep forgetting this. We're very selfish about Player FC. Player FC doesn't understand the actual player they support. I said this about Greenwood. Everyone who wanted Greenwood back never spoke about what Greenwood wanted. It was all about what they wanted, because Player FC is very selfish. It's about backing that player no matter what, because you're in love with them or whatever. I don't know. Pictures on the wall FC, I don't know. But Mason Greenwood knew he couldn't come back to England. So coming back to Man United, he wasn't there begging for it because he knew he couldn't come back. Sancho, Player FC, are like Starboy, get him in the team, this, that and the other. But they never think about what Sancho wants. Sancho does not want to work hard and fight back from 5th choice winger for the whole of the season to maybe play in Europa League crap games and be on the bench. Jadon Sancho played in a Champions League final. He fell out with Man United last year. He fell out with this manager. He thinks he's better than they do. He believes in himself. He wants to play football now, right now, and yesterday. So all this Sancho stuff, we need him to stay and work hard and stay in the team. That might happen because no one comes in for him, but he wants to play football now. Absolutely right. It's like what's happening with Chelsea and Raheem Sterling. You know, Chelsea fans are saying, well, he should keep his gob shut and work hard to get on the bench. Absolutely should keep his gob shut, but he wants to play football. So he's moaning and trying to find a move. Sancho wants to play football. And that's where we are. Fabrizio Romano's just retweeted about Sancho as well. He's just said that understands Sancho's future remains open. Could still happen before the end of the window. PSG spoke to the players' camp in July, but no formal bid. There are also more options, no decision made yet. So, look, Jadon Sancho's a very active situation. You've got Fabrizio Romano just this minute retweeting a story from last week saying that the situation is open. You've got Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic saying that there's a sense that Chelsea might enter the race. And you've also got, in the same article, Jadon Sancho wants to play regular football. Well, regular football is not there for him at Man United. So he's looking for a move. United are looking to move him on. The problem is, player wants to move, club wants him to move, clubs don't want to pay his wages, and that is the problem. And it's the same problem that we've had all summer. The wages kill us. Now, in this situation, it's a bit different because Sancho wants to play and he wants to leave. Eriksen, Lindelof, Maguire, Casemiro, massive wages, can't get rid of them. But they're not looking to leave, are they? But Sancho does want to leave, but he still faces the same problem. Nobody wants him at the price he is. The Chelsea thing I find incredible. I really do. I mean, it's not the first time we've heard about Sancho and Chelsea, and I'm starting to sense, like it says in the article, that Man United are sensing something coming from Chelsea. But for the love of God, if we've got any Chelsea fans, can you please explain it to us? Because I don't understand how. I mean, I don't understand Chelsea anyway, but why would you want Jadon Sancho? Like, I'm not saying Sancho wouldn't do well at Chelsea. Every bloody FIFA career mode I play, he always goes to Chelsea, to be honest, and he always does quite well. But how on earth would Sancho at Chelsea? How on earth would Chelsea want Sancho? I mean, you've got Palmer, Madueke, Mudryk, Neto. You're after João Felix. You've got Nkunku. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. Why would you want Sancho? Like, you need a striker. So I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. But at the moment, as long as he goes and he's off the books, like Michelle says, who cares? I don't care. I mean, maybe it'll be Juventus. Maybe it'll be PSG. Maybe it'll be a loan to Dortmund. Maybe Chelsea do want him. I don't know. But I think what's very, very clear is that Sancho wants to go. United would like to let him go. But the wage and the contract that was handed out by a previous regime absolutely kills us. They've also still got Raheem Sterling, as Kubidi said as well. Sancho must go. He disrespected the badge. There's no excuse or coming back from that, says Steg. We ain't buying him. We want Osman, says Max. And do you believe Sancho has a redemption arc this season? I believe he can, but I don't know his mental state right now, says Sack. I think anybody's got a redemption arc. I think it would be remiss and wrong to say that there's never a redemption. I tell you what, that Premier League ball looks good, doesn't it? There would be no, but I think for Sancho to have a redemption arc at Manchester United, there's got to be too many components. First of all, he needs a couple of injuries ahead of him to players we don't want to get injured. Second of all, he needs to turn up and train and work hard every single day for the next 2 or 3 months to get that opportunity. Then he needs Ten Hag to trust him. Then he needs to be consistent every week and hold his place when those players come back that have had to be injured to let him in. It's a lot. It's a lot. You can have a redemption arc when there's a space in the team for you. All you've got to do is work hard and prove yourself. But there's not even a space on the bench for him at the moment. So it's a hell of a lot of work. And you don't know what the relationship is between him and United anyway. It might all just be a front to get him out of the club. Isn't your son player FC for Maguire, says Truly. Mate, he's 7 years of age. We're not when we're talking about player FC on social media, we're not talking about 7 and 8 year olds. We're talking about people in their teens and their 20s and their 30s who put the players before they put forward the club. Do you think we could tempt Odegaard from Arsenal? Remember, we got Van Persie. Liam, I don't know what you're eating, but you might want to phone your doctors up because you're hallucinating, mate. We will take Chilwell, Chalobah and Cash for Sancho, says Steve. We will not take Chilwell, Steve. Do not speak for Manchester United fans. We do not want Chilwell. He's basically just Marcus. He's basically Luke Shaw with a different name. Tillack says, we are only talking about Ugarte, but Chilwell or any left-back is mainly a must. I don't want Chilwell. What are you? That's 2 in a row. What's this? You need to chill. Forget Chilwell. You need to calm down and chill yourself. Chilwell. Well, I mean, bloody. I think people just hear Chelsea, left-back, he'll do. The guy's a walking plaster. Chilwell's injured more than bloody Shaw. Do your bloody homework. Oh, we'll take Chilwell. Mate, I don't want Chilwell anywhere near Man United. No way. No, he's good mates with Mount and Shaw. Oh, good. They can all spend time together on the bench, can't they? Yeah, the NHS-sponsored bench because they're injured again. No, absolutely not. And also, look at the Mason Mount situation, as somebody in the chat just said there, as KCH said. Why are Chelsea getting rid of Chilwell? If he's so good, why are Chelsea getting rid of Chilwell? Because Cucurella's not perfect. They're getting rid of him because he is injury prone. Abhijit says, Chelsea scout asked ChatGPT who can play false 9. It said Sancho, Mark. And Gideon says Sancho wouldn't get regular games at Chelsea either. I think he might do quite well at Chelsea, to be fair. You know, settled back in London. Is he actually? I say back in London. He was at Man City before he went to Dortmund, wasn't he? But look, I think he could be a good player for Chelsea, but I don't see it happening. I really think it's a difficult one to see happening. Just going back to Scott McTominay, by the way, a bit more development on him. Let me just go back to this bit here because I was just reading the Romano bit. Where was the bit on McTominay I wanted to read to you? Burnley interested in signing Hannibal Mabry. Permanent deal or loan with obligation to buy. Both options at this stage. Hannibal Mabry, spoke about it before. Very, very sad. Was a player that was really... got some breaking news for you around injuries. By the way, Hannibal Mabry was a player with a lot of promise. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and he will be going for free next summer anyway, and he won't be playing any game time for Man United this season. So, really, Mabry's quite an irrelevance, I would say. Chelsea scout asked ChatGPT. I've done that one. Thank you for that from Amjet. This is a bit of breaking news for you. Big shout out to UTD Menace on X, who's very good around this sort of injury situation at Manchester United. So it's breaking news. Victor Lindelof's surgery went well. He's out for a few more weeks. Rasmus out for about another 4 weeks. So that's from UTD Menace. Lindelof's surgery went well, out for a few more weeks. Rasmus about another 4 weeks. That's Lindelof not going 100%. So Lindelof's not going anywhere. Injured during the transfer window. It's the old Phil Jones trick, isn't it? I say trick. I'm joking, but you can't sell a player that's injured. So Lindelof's not going to go anywhere. Rasmus 4 weeks, takes him after the international break, which is what we thought anyway. So no news on that one that's anything. But Lindelof will be staying at Man United because he's still going to be out for a few more weeks. So there we go. If you were manager, what would you do with Mason Mount as United won? Stick him on the bench. Tell him this is the biggest season of his career. And that by the end of it, I want him to show me that he's a Man United starter. And if he says to me where, I say, did I tell you? That's your job, mate. So, look, Mason Mount, I think he got a lot of shit on Friday night against Fulham. But actually, during the game, I saw a lot of people giving him a lot of credit. I think he's good in the press. You know what I'd say about Mason Mount? When I used to play football and I was like 14, 15, I guarantee if Mason Mount played in my team, they would say, you know what? He never stops running. Look at his attitude. He never stops running. That's what I'd say about Mason Mount. He never stops running. But But you can't play Mount and Bruno in the same team like that. We had no output at all. I know Bruno nearly scored a couple of goals, but it was too easy for Fulham until we brought Xerxes on, and then suddenly things started happening. You know, started getting bodies in the box that were proper, you know, McTominay, Xerxes, proper big physical presences in the box, making their centre-backs think. Their centre-backs aren't thinking about Mount and Bruno. The chances we created for Mount and Bruno were just, you know, good positional running from Mount and Bruno, but they don't occupy them enough. So I'm with Wolfie. I just don't see where Mason Mount fits in the team. I think he's a very good bench option. If you get a bad injury to a Manu or a Bruno, then Mount comes in and plays for the next 2 or 3 months. But I don't think he's a starter. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that in the modern game. Look at Jack Grealish at Man City. He doesn't start for Man City, but he'll still play a lot of games. I think Mount is probably our Grealish in the sense that there's a very good player there, but I just don't see him as a starter. But LSG's correct. That's not the plan. In our heads as fans, I think we think, well, Mason Mount's is probably going to be a bench player. I don't see a way for him to get into the team. And that's fine, but that's not the plan. The plan has changed. Like, the plan was not to give him the number 7 shirt, pay £55 million for him and stick him on the bench. So whatever the plan was, it wasn't that on Mason Mount. Anyway, let's go back to the transfer news because we've got some more to bring you in here. Also coming in from, where was it? Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic. Napoli's sporting director travelled to England for face-to-face meeting for Scott McTominay. Progress is being made, but reports saying personal terms being agreed are incorrect. I mean, that's a massive update, by the way, because we can say that McTominay is interested in Napoli, which we understand to be true. And we can say that Napoli are interested in Scott McTominay. And you can read it from the Corriere dello Sport or an Italian outlet. But when The Athletic are putting it in print that the Napoli, the Napoli sporting director did factually fly to England to talk to Scott McTominay, that's a massive update. It's absolutely huge because that's credible. Like, they did fly to England to talk to Scott McTominay. Now, whether they agreed personal terms or not, I don't think that really matters. If Dan Ashworth flies over to Italy to speak to Amrabat today, you would expect Amrabat to be a Man United player at some point in the next week. So I think the fact that Napoli have flown to England to speak to Scott McTominay is very, very positive news. Now, they've still got to get the money. My theory is that McTominay wants to go to Napoli and that Napoli want McTominay, but they've got to sell Osimhen first. And that's what I think's happening there. By no means is it guaranteed, but yeah. Do you think we're scoring more goals this season, says Sack? I think we'd struggle not to score more goals because we hardly scored any goals last season, did we? Tyrrell Shawell, one left boot between all three. Sling it, says Matty Hoy. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And we need a left-footed left back to overlap and feed the box, says Rat. And Napoli have the same problem with us, Mark. They need to sell first before we can sign McTominay. Yep. And McTominay would play for Napoli's first team, says Brian. I think he'd probably do quite well in that league, really. You know, if anybody who's a watcher of Italian football, I think it's very different if you think about how well people like Chris Smalling have done and Tamori and Tammy Abraham, even Ashley Young when he was at Inter. Like, it's a different pace of league, and I think it's certainly one where I think McTominay could do, you know, reasonably well. Simon Evans, thank you very much for gifting a membership. You're an absolute legend for that. Get your questions in. Over 20,000 watching again. Absolute legends. Make sure you subscribe, by the way. It says 918, but we're actually only 200 subscribers away from 920. On that road to 2 million, make sure you subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. So, bit of a recap. Well, the key recap points are that Obviously, we did the video last night about Ugarte and a loan obligation. I would be a bit patient on that. I still think it will happen, but I would be a bit patient on it because I think it's going to take a bit of time. Still, United looking to try and move McTominay on to generate the money, but the loan obligation with Ugarte is still a nice thing to have in the back pocket. Obviously, we're still pushing for Sancho to go somewhere. That's going to be difficult, but significantly no left back. Which to me, I think is amongst so much of the positivity, and there has been a lot of positivity. I mean, 2 good centre-backs, Mazraoui, Xerxes, hopefully Ugarte comes in very soon. That's a decent summer transfer window, but not getting a left back, that's a priority. You've got to lose at least half a point for that. You have. That was a priority. So if we're not doing that, we have no excuse this season if things go wrong at left back. So very disappointed if that doesn't happen. But having said that, Fabrizio did sort of hint at it yesterday when we were talking about Kadioglu and we were talking about left backs, and he said Man United don't want to pay that amount of money for a left back. So I think it's just no money. No money, no money. What's the story of Eriksen to Ajax, says Reagan? Well, we've spoken about Eriksen. Man United looking for 5 million, but the most important thing when you think about selling a player is their wage. I mean, I hear people saying we should sell Luke Shaw. He's got one of the longest contracts in the club, and he's on about 190k a week. You're not selling Luke Shaw. You should sell the Prat who gave him the contract, but you're not selling Luke Shaw. He has got a lot of years left on his contract. I think it goes to 2027. 3 years on his contract, and he's on about 190k a week. So people say, oh, sell him, he's useless. Like, you've got to look at contract and wage. And Eriksen is on 150k a week. That's a hell of a lot of money. He will be on more than some Man City first teamers. He'll definitely be on more than a lot of Liverpool and Arsenal first teamers. That's how much 150k a week is. And you think some Turkish team is going to go, hey, United, take 5 million off us and we'll give Christian 150k. You just can't do it. And there will come a time where you can blame it on the current ownership, but you can't blame it on the current ownership at the moment because they're inheriting this sort of rubbish. Yeah, and there's a good point there. Ryan says, at least the contracts aren't as long as Chelsea contracts. Yeah. Jonathan is singing, you're stuck with McTominay. Oh, you're stuck with McTominay. I don't think we are, mate. I think he wants to go, and I think that there is interest there. I don't think he's the... I think if you were singing you're stuck with Lindelof, you're stuck with Eriksen, you're stuck with Maguire, you're stuck with Casemiro, you're stuck with Sancho, I would agree with your song. But I don't think we're stuck with McTominay. He's one of the players that's actually on a reasonable wage at United that other clubs don't look at and go, that's ridiculous. So, Solomon says, Eriksen is declining, so why doesn't he take the wage drop? So, Solomon, if you were in a job and you don't have long left in that job before you've got to retire, and you're on a really good wage, would you put your hand up and say, you know what, I've only got maybe a year or two left and I'm declining, I'll happily take a 50% pay cut? If anything, it works the other way. If you've only got a couple of years left at the top and you're on 150k a week, you're going to sit there and earn it, because in 3 years' time, you won't be earning anything. Might be doing a few, you know, £1,000 an hour appearances on TV. So these players, they've got mouths to feed and families and futures to plan. What's good and bad in playing right back in left back under Ten Hag, says Akil? Well, great question. Let's take Mazraoui and Delo. If we're going to use one of them as our left back, what's bad about that? Well, they're the only two fullbacks we've got. Mazraoui is the Delo right back, backup, whatever. So you don't have a backup right back if you play Mazraoui at left back. They're not natural left backs, so you may not get an overlap and you may not get a very good left foot. What's good about it? Well, at least you've got somebody who can do a job there instead of nobody. But to me, it's incredible that you buy Mazraoui to... I mean, look, let me just explain this. A month ago, we had Wan-Bissaka and Delo as our two right backs. And we had Shaw as our left back. We've sold Wan-Bissaka, brought Mazraoui in, Luke Shaw is injured, and now Delo's our left back and Mazraoui is our right back, and we've got no backup either way. That's not good. When you're going to play 3 games a week, 2 games a week, whatever you want to say, that's not good. It's about bodies. It's about depth. If Dalot and Mazraoui are going to play 9 out of 10 every week and never get injured, we'll get by. But we know that's not going to happen. And if you're relying on Luke Shaw's fitness to solve your left-back problem, then, it's like relying on Ronald McDonald to look after your cow. It's not going to go well unless you want a burger. How many goals do you think Højlund will score? Got no idea, CSK. It all comes down to fitness and rotation, etc. Do you think it's ultimately Ineos' decision not to go for a left-back? Must because there's no funds, says Anthony. Look, maybe there ain't no money in the bank. Maybe Ineos are saying, look, it's about priorities, Eric. You're not getting one of 2 centre-backs, a backup striker, a midfielder, a right-back and a left-back. One of them you can't have. And maybe they've just gone, well, we need the centre-backs, we need the midfielder, we need the striker, and I'll take a right-back who can play left-back over a left-back. Maybe that's it. Maybe they've had to sacrifice one of the positions. If that's the case, that's fine. Is it an excuse? You can always do a loan deal. You can always find money. You can always do a loan deal. I don't really want a loan deal, but I'd take it over nothing. I mean, I don't want Marcos Alonso. I don't want Reguilon, but I'd take it over absolutely nothing because it's about having something, isn't it? What if Ten Hag's plan is to play Maguire in the back line and use Martinez as a double for Mazraoui or De Ligt? Maybe this is why we don't go for a left-back, says ADTF. Mate, we can all find a way to cover positions in a way that's not good cover. I mean, you saw what Adama Traore did to Martinez, and you saw what Martinez did to Adama Traore, but that was when he was playing at centre-back. You put Martinez up against Mo Salah or whatever, he ain't a left-back. He's not got the mobility to play as a left-back. He'll do a job. Lindelof will do a job at right-back, but in certain situations, they'll come unstuck. And should you be walking into a season going, well, we'll just get by if things don't go well? Like, it leaves you... I completely agree. There's people that we can put people in positions to make it work. But, people obsess about this. We've got to play a high line. We've got to press high up the pitch. How do you do that if you're playing Martinez as a left-back and Maguire as a left-sided centre-back? Again, you're dropping your line back again, aren't you? Because you're a bit wary of your weaknesses. You can't play on the halfway line with Maguire as the left-sided centre-back and Martinez as a inverted, high up the pitch left-back. You can't do that. So, yeah, we can always find a way to make do, but why would we want to be making do before... right at the start of the season? Like, you're meant to be as strong as you can. Yoro could play right back. I've not heard anybody talk about that. Yoro can play right back, and you could play De Ligt and Martinez, and then you've got a bit of cover at left back. I mean, look, Mazraoui, Dalot, Yoro, they can all play right back. There's a bit of cover there, I suppose. It might not be the end of the world, but what I'm saying is going into the season, not covering off a high priority. Look, I completely agree. You can cover it off. You can put a plaster on the wound. And if it happens on September the 1st, fine. But we knew we needed a left back all of last season. And we knew we needed a left back at the start of the transfer window. And we've known we needed a left back all the way through the window. In fact, every time I've done a video talking about, here we go, De Ligt. Oh, deal done. Mazraoui, or, terms agreed, Yoro. There's always someone, quite rightly, in the chat saying, what we're going to do about left back. It's been a constant concern throughout the whole summer. What are we going to do about a left back? It's not a new problem. And if we're not going to do anything about left back, we can't sit there over the season and go, well, we've been unlucky. We've decided not to do something about it. It's a huge risk if we do. Do you think Rasmus or Xerxes will score more goals this season? Multi-layered question again. Kaj, if you can put crosses into the box like we did on Friday, then they'll score a lot of goals. It was a great goal by Xerxes. But service is key. Last season, Rasmus was 52nd in relation to shots on goal. The service was abysmal. 52nd in the Premier League out of all Premier League forwards for shots on goal. That's a service issue. If you give him the service, I think that there will be opportunities for them to score goals, which is all you ask. We can't judge a striker unless they're missing loads and loads of chances. Ben Jacobs has just tweeted that PSG are prepared to sanction a loan with an obligation for Ugarte to join Man United. Positive talks, but PSG in no rush and happy to let negotiations run into next week if needed. Yeah, well, it's basically what we spoke about last night. I don't think this necessarily happens quickly. I certainly don't think he'll be in before the Brighton game. Which legend would you bring back to the current team, given our current situation? Prime Roy Keane, Mark. Prime Roy Keane. Whack him in the midfield. That'll do for me. That will do for me. Dean White, I think I'm just going to grant you your wish. You can do one, mate. Doesn't solve the left-back situation, but do we convert Schur into a fifth-choice centre-back, not to save him from more injuries, but potentially need another left-back and centre-back, says Ravi. Well, it doesn't solve the problem, does it? You know, I think Luke Shaw's a very good left-sided centre-back, but it doesn't solve the problem. You're absolutely correct. Right, back at 2 o'clock. It's me on the 2 o'clock today. I think it is. Yeah, Tuesday, 8 o'clock show tonight, 2 o'clock. Obviously, we'll react to anything that needs reacting to as well. Take care, everyone. Fantastic show. Loads covered on the show this morning. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. And have a great day, whatever you're doing, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Take care, stay safe, and I will speak to you all at 2. Thanks for watching.